Hello and welcome to this special web series on the Goa Inquisition. The series introduces you to the most recent research produced by internationally recognized scholars. I am Dale Luis Menezes. Our guest will give you a glimpse of their research as well as the research that has taken place over the last 50 or more years. You will hear directly from the experts about the nature of state and religious violence, as well as the challenges a historian faces in researching a difficult topic such as the history of the Inquisition. Our web series aims to educate the general public about the various aspects of this historical phenomena. The web series is supported by the Al-Zulaij collective in Goa. Additionally, the series is supported by the History of Inquisitions group, a group of scholars spread across the world. We also have the support of the Center for Religious History Studies at the Catholic University of Portugal and of the Chair of Sephardic Studies, Alberto Benveniste, at the University of Lisbon. We thank all of them for their generous moral support. Our guest today is Dr. Ana Cannas de Cunha. She is a research fellow at the Center for History of the University of Lisbon and director of the Arquivo Histórico Ultramarino, also in Lisbon. She holds a PhD in Library and Information Studies, which she completed from the University College in London in 2004. She has taught at the University of Lisbon and at the Nova University, also in Lisbon. Her main fields of research, publication, and other activities concern archival studies and history. Dr. Ana, thank you for joining us and welcome to the web series.
Hello, I'm glad to be here and happy to answer to your questions. I will try to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's not waste any time and let's get straight to the topic. And you are an expert on the history of the new Christians. So, and also you've written about the foundation of the Inquisition. So, without further ado, let me just get straight to the point and just ask you, why was the Inquisition founded in 1560 in Goa?
Well, there were some attempts to establish the Inquisition in the years before, but I think that the main reason was a shift that during this period went from trying to convert people to the Christian faith by convincing methods, not coercive methods. And as the Portuguese crown was facing diverse cultures and societies far away from Lisbon, the court, though an ecclesiastical or religious court, was used as a political tool to try to rule in a uniform way over the Portuguese community. There existed some suspicions regarding the connections between New Christians and Jews in Cochin and Goa, and this was the kind of trigger to justify the establishment of the tribunal after the establishment of the Inquisition in Portugal that happened in the previous decade.
So you also talk about the whether forced or voluntary emigration of New Christians and Jews to like the non-Portuguese territories, but also to Cochin and Goa. So you talk about the emigration or to the Ottoman Empire. how how much was this emigration also linked to the foundation of the Inquisition in Goa?
Well, it was an issue that I wish to clarify when some years ago already I was studying in a master about this matter of the Inquisition in Goa. I searched for data on the Jewish or the new Christian immigration from Portugal to the so-called Portuguese Estado da India, namely to Cochin and Goa, during the years previously to the first attempts of establishing the tribunal, the court there. The information regarding the Portuguese immigration along the 16th century and even after is mainly qualitative. The one about the circulation of new Christians and Jews in and out of Portugal and overseas is provided mainly by several types of correspondence from Jesuits, from the Portuguese authorities. Also, we can find some qualitative information in travel books and legislation, as well as by the inquisitorial files, because people who was accused or denounced spoke about their trajectories along the several areas and several countries. It was not possible to obtain precise numbers comparing the Portuguese of Jewish or New Christian origin to the other Portuguese, to the numbers of the other Portuguese that were settled in India. But even if we discount a certain exaggeration by those whose letters also reflect an anti-Semitic spirit, it seems acceptable that more Portuguese New Christians went out of Portugal when the external and internal pressure to pro-Inquisition in Lisbon grew, and obviously when the court was seated in Portugal, they fled away. And this apparently increasing new Christian immigration may have worked as an instability factor of the ruling by the Portuguese crown of the different possessions in India and their diverse populations. The connections between New Christians and Jews in Portuguese, between commas Portuguese in India, supposed in many cases were real in other cases, and were felt by some people as a menace of sincere conversion to Christianity or Catholicism. This conversion was understood by the central power in Lisbon as a way of controlling the habits, the behavior of people, including from the point of view in Portugal. And besides, there were already Jewish communities anchored in Portuguese India, synagogues, and the reliability of the New Christians toward the interests of the Portuguese crown were sometimes put in question.
So just to clarify, the larger thrust in sort of establishing the Inquisition was to first and foremost make sure that the new Christian population remained Christian, right? They did not move out of the fold. And secondly, it was to make sure that the Jewish population was also controlled, right, in all the Portuguese territories.
Yes, but I would add that it worked as an example, or the idea
Hmm.
of those who supported the establishment of the Inquisition in Goa it was that by the example, the true Christianity of the new Christians, others would follow. It seems paradoxal, and it is until a certain point, but the coercive way was to be sure of the faith, the true faith of these people, and of the that they were also faithful from the point of view of the power, of the political power.
Of the Portuguese crown, right?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay, okay. So are these fears or concerns reflected in the debates before the foundation of the Inquisition, Goa Inquisition in the
Yes,
1560s?
yes. The full scope of this debate on the establishment of the Inquisition is not evident, as information is scarce, and probably this is also due to the secrecy which surrounded all the matters of the Inquisition. And this secrecy is mentioned by the few identified protagonists of the debate. These debates sometimes opposed religious and secular authorities, but there were also different opinions among the religious authorities and among the secular authorities. A key issue is the link to the debate on how to propagate and preserve the Christian faith to reach a true conversion. There was strong arguments in each side from of those who supported a position of persuasion against those who supported a proposition of coercion or even violence or enticement. Some of these methods they knew resulted in conversions that were insincere and opportunistic, and were even questioned within the Catholic Church. Even if in the end the position was to support the establishment of the Inquisition, during the previous years the debate was high. There is an interesting position of Secretary of King João III, Alcácer Carneiro, who advised him to be prudent regarding propositions of expelling the Brahmins of Goa from Dio, or expelling the Islamic population in Socotra, or supporting a hard controlling position. They also they discussed very much the new Christian question and Judaism question, but they also discussed the opportunity and effectiveness of the tribunal in relation to the converted Hindus, to the so-called Gentiles. Even Francisco Xavier, the priest São Francisco Xavier, who did not question the Inquisition itself, considered 15 years before that the most important was the need of more preachers. So the other key issue linked to these debates was the economical, political, and military potential effects that the establishment of the Goa Inquisition could provoke. The Portuguese ambassador in Rome at the time, Távora, feared that Jews and other people working for the Portuguese crown in India emigrated to other places like Basra in Iraq or Cairo due to the inquisitorial action. For him, this would benefit the Ottoman Turkey
Mm-hmm.
and jeopardize the Portuguese interests in India. So it's a mixture of
So would you say that at the end, you mentioned that it was used as the Inquisition was used as a political tool. So, given all these debates, it was still established. So politics won at the end of the day. Would you say that?
Yes, I dare to say that.
Okay, okay.
In the end, it was, even if later on in 17th century and after, when the Judaism and the new Christian issue in India was not so strong as was in Portugal.
Mhm.
Even if afterwards there were hard debates from times to times on the effects of the inquisitorial action in India.
Right. So it leads me to my next question. Um, we have established that there is a suspicion, the royal power, the crown, the state is suspicious. There is an anxiety about, say, the new Christian population, this Jewish population, or any other kind of population. Uh, Specifically in the case of the new Christian population and the Jewish population, do you think that the threat that the crown or the state perceived was it imagined or was it real, or to what extent was it real and imagined?
Uh, well, as I mentioned before, the apparently increasing new Christian immigration may have worked as an instability factor of the ruling by the Portuguese crown of the different possessions in India and of the diverse populations. The connections were felt by some as a menace.
Mhm.
It is difficult to have a clear and definitive position on that. I'm not sure if they were really a true menace, but
Mhm.
because you see, even using the inquisitorial files, the first trials just before the Inquisition was established in Goa, you can see that some probably had in his memoir still Jewish practices in idea, and some were not exactly completely completely on the side of the interests of the Portuguese crown. The most important is that in the end, the royal power felt that they were a menace.
Mhm.
I'm
Mhm.
not sure if all of them were
Right,
really
right.
a true
And
menace, a true
yeah, and
um,
would
danger.
would the would the problem that the crown perceived, was it an economic problem or was it a problem of law and order or politics? Did they fear that?
I would say some aspects are linked to the others. The economic interests of the royal authorities or of the crown could coincide or not with private interests, even if from the old Christians or the new Christians. But more than, it seems to me that more than an economic issue, it was
Uh-huh,
a
uh-huh.
political issue, sometimes linked to other, a
To
diplomatic issue, an idea um, of that this was the best way to control all the interests there. We could ask if this is more than a sign of strength, if this was not a sign of political weakness, but
Right,
it's
right,
like
right,
that.
right, right. So that leads me to a very basic question. Perhaps it's too basic for a scholar like you, but I think our viewers need to know who are the new Christians, right? Are they
Uh,
like what is this category
yeah.
called new Christians? Are they the same as Jews, or are they not? Because it seems to be very simple, but I
It is
believe
not.
it's not that,
No,
right?
it is
So
not.
yeah.
It is not, and it is an important question. Well, the word, the term Cristão Novo or New Christian means those Jews who are converted to the Christian faith. This is the word that in Portugal is more used, Cristão Novo. In Portugal, this conversion covered Portuguese Jews and thousands of Jews who had been expelled from Spain in 1492
Yeah,
after the
after
establishment
Granada,
of
yeah.
the Inquisition in Spain. And there was the most relevant fact. It was the fact that this was not a voluntary conversion. In the Easter of 1497, thousands of Jews were gathered in Lisbon in a mischief way, supposing that the king was allowing them to go out, those who wished to exit from the country. And instead they were baptized jointly against their will, the children first, but also the older people. Some of these converted Jews married old Christians, some pursued truly the Christian faith, and
Mhm.
others not. It is not possible to get precise numbers, but it is possible to reconstitute family and individual life stories, including using inquisitorial sources, as they provide information on the ancestors of the accused. For instance, in Lamego, that it is a town in the center north of Portugal, there was an important community of new Christians who owned lands and had vineyards in the lands, as old Christians had.
Mhm.
So they were mixed up with the Portuguese society in some cases.
So if I understood you correctly, what you're saying is that the Cristãos Novos comes out of the fall of Granada after 1492 and the expulsion of Jews from Spain. So they moved to Portugal, right? And there's this conversion that happens against their will. Some remain Christian, some don't. But also this population is quite mixed with the Portuguese society and in wider Iberian society as well. So effectively, when we say ethno Christians, we are talking about a population that is hard to define. The boundaries are hard to define, isn't it?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
it's true.
So some were integrated, others were not. Some made the move away from their old religion, and some didn't, right? So
Yeah,
this is what
yeah,
creates the fuzzy boundaries. So yeah. So let's move maybe towards the Indian part of the story, towards South Asian part. And the first place that many of these new Christians and Jews found refuge is Cochin, uh, which is such a important center before, let's say, before the 1530s at least, for trade and even for like religious power, state power even. Um, how important is a consideration of Cochin when we want to understand the foundation of the Goa Inquisition? Do we need to talk about Cochin, or do we not talk about Cochin? Is what I'm asking. Very basic question.
well,
Yeah, it's too
I
basic. I'm sorry.
no, it's true. we need really to speak about Cochin, because I think there is an important aspect in Cochin, probably a little bit different from other possessions, Portuguese possessions in India. Cochin had Santa Cruz de Cochin as the Portuguese city, and what I could translate to Upper Cochin, Cochin de Cima, that was not, and where there existed strong communities of Jews that were called Malabar or black Jews and white Jews from different origins, and at the time in the 40s, 50s of the 16th century, when this atmosphere of pre-Inquisition was happening, a new synagogue was being built, and we know that some of the new Christians who fled from Portugal were in connection with these communities. So Cochin, even if in Goa it happens also, Cochin was a particular case for suspicion from the point of view of the more orthodox Catholic religious, and it was where the first persecutions began in 1557. Maybe also because in Goa, at the time, the governor, Francisco Barreto, was prudent regarding Inquisition. He was not a supporter of the court. So the first essays of a strong and hard position against New Christians began really in Cochin.
So you mentioned the white Jews and black Jews. What are they? Could you explain to us what's the difference between these two groups?
Well, the black Jews were the Malabar Jews that were previously settled in India. Recent studies from scholars like Tavin and others pay attention to the fact that sometimes there are in this black community of so-called black Jews, there are some Jews of Sephardi origin, but the main difference is that the white Jews were generally connected to the Iberian Peninsula and came later on, had different activities, sometimes more important, and they were separated communities of Jews in Cochin. The so-called white Jews were those more connected with the new Christians. Sometimes they knew each other from links that crossed the Mediterranean Sea and the Ottoman Empire.
Okay. So the black Jews were from, say, Africa or so the Arabian areas, is it?
Well, I was rereading some studies about that. There is a general idea that they came from Middle East, and they settled many years before the white Jews in the Malabar region.
Hmm.
But now it's added that probably they did not come only from Middle East. They probably had some mixed origins, but the main feature is that they were there, this
Hmm.
community in Malabar, privileged to the waves of immigration of Jews from the Iberian Peninsula and from what is Portugal and Spain afterwards.
Right. So I think we can draw like some conclusions from what you said. Like the white Jews were from Iberia, and they were connected with the New Christians through their trading networks in the
Yes,
Mediterranean, in the Ottoman Empire. And the black Jews were the Jewish population that was already there, and we can't really say where exactly they came from. Perhaps from the Indian Ocean networks, like the Cairo Geniza networks, for instance, perhaps. But so that's the main distinction. And I think largely the white Jews were the ones who were held in suspicion, right, in places like
yeah,
Cochin.
exactly.
Okay, okay. So that leads me to a the next question is, why were these new Christians and Jews denounced? Like, why and how were they denounced in, say, Cochin? So again, like, we know, okay, there are some Judaizing practices, so they are under suspicion. But is there something more that you can tell us about their
Yeah,
denouncing?
the uh, not exactly the facts, but what base is the base of the trials began by this. Two or three writings appeared in two churches of Cochin in the more or less March, April of 1557. And in those writings, they were against some of the preachers, namely one, Dom Gonçalo da Silveira, who was a Jesuit, and had some Christian sentences. And they were found, I will not give you the details, and the immediate suspicion of the authors was addressed to the New Christians.
Mm,
And it began first in Cochin like this. With different authorities against the idea of questioning the people and witnesses and slaves and so on. Like the captain of Cochin, he disagreed from that, but some religious authorities went on and questioned mainly the slaves, afterwards other people, mainly slaves, about what were their masters doing in secrecy.
mm, right.
And this was, it appears, many of the stereotypes that appear later on in the trials of the Inquisition regarding the Judaism, that they prayed on Friday's night,
Mhm.
that they went to attend the masses, but when blessed o Santíssimo Sacramento was high,
Mm,
people didn't look there, that they had did not eat pork
mm,
inside house, but
mm,
offered pork when visitors came. So it was something that, and that in Cochin, one of the main issues that was present in these questionings was the fact that some went regularly to the houses of some Jews in the other part of the city, in the upper Cochin. So this was the pretext
to start denouncing them.
yeah.
So you mentioned about slaves, and I find quite interesting. Also the fact that they asked slaves, and over here in the inquisitorial trials, testimony was considered as proof, right? And so in the case of New Christians, you just mentioned how the slaves would denounce them. So, what can we make of the fact that slaves could easily denounce their new Christian masters when it came to their interaction with the Inquisition?
Well, yeah, as I thought about that several times, as other servants, but the slaves were in proximity with their masters, and this fact could theoretically give access to aspects of the daily life that were more private. And according to the statements of some of the accused, after the slaves were imprisoned in Cochin until they declared what the court intended. They were not asked exactly on matters they knew or saw about the masters, but on specific things in a standardized way, not declaring the time nor the exact circumstances of space where the practice might have occurred. And there is a double behavior. On the one hand, it appears that there were promises of rewards, money or goods or conditions of marriage and freedom of slaves that were made, and the promise that this would be kept secret and they would not suffer any action from the masters. But it appears also that one or two of the accused tried to intercept slaves from testifying, mistreating them. Well, what we must probably stress is that formally the denounced did not know the identity of the witnesses who denounced them. In Cochin, probably as it was a first action of the Inquisition in a small circuit, probably they could imagine who were them, but in general they did not know. So slaves could be a source of information, true information or not. Difficult to
were there cases of slaves trying to say take revenge? Like were there cases of vendetta of slaves denouncing their masters because they have been mistreated by their masters?
In the records of one of the trials, I think it was the Al-Zulaij, the accused say that two of the slaves who wished to testify in favor, their testimony was not recorded, and in one or two cases, they stated that the slave was beaten by, I don't know if he robbed something, or and afterwards he went to the authorities to denounce his master. It's probably something that happens also today, not exactly in these circumstances,
yeah,
but it's difficult to balance sometimes what is true or what was not true.
Mm. So the Inquisition tried to find out if the testimony was true and given for no other motive, no other revenge because of
I,
revenge.
I would say in this case, in concrete, in this specific case, just before the official establishment of the Inquisition, I would imagine that the authorities who wanted to that the court was established were not so worried to be sure of the testimonies, because this is a time where they wanted really to establish the court. So it is you don't have in the original files of these cases, you don't have the original testimonies of 1507. You have only what they call the ratification of these testimonies, which are copies,
Mm.
supposed copies of the original one. So it is difficult to know if there were true witnesses and true testimonies.
Okay. Um, so now we are. Let's move to the period after the Inquisition was uh, established, and of course, your earlier work was about the establishment of the Inquisition. And but you did, after your book was published, you did some work on some interesting cases where the viceroy and the religious authorities clashed with each other. And so, what I understand from your later work is that just as before there were like different differences in opinion, there was also differences in opinion afterwards, right? And so you mentioned this case between the viceroy, then Viceroy Don Antonio de Melo de Castro, with the then Inquisitor at Goa, Paulo Castellino de Freitas from 1663 to 1670. First, just could you briefly mention what that conflict was about in the 17th century? And secondly, I wanted to also talk about how important is a consideration of these dissenting opinions when we want to generalize about the Inquisition. So first, what was the conflict about between the viceroy and the inquisitor, and what is the importance of understanding these different opinions in making a broader generalization about the Inquisition?
Okay. Well, this conflict in the 17th century was related to the inquisitorial repression of Gentile people, that is Hindus, who in different ways question matters such as the conversion to Christianity of children who had lost their fathers, little children. What happened, it is that in Dio, in this case specific, and after in Goa, the viceroy, Dom Antonio de Melo de Castro, was against the interference of the Inquisition in these matters. And in Goa, there was an Hindu who worked also to the Portuguese in connection, not worked in connection with Portuguese authorities. This Hindu, Mangoji Sanai, had 3 great children whose father had died, and the Inquisition interfered, namely Paulo Castellino de Freitas, wanting wanting that the father of Christians, o pai dos cristãos, educated them, and so withdrawing him from these children from the family. And the viceroy was against this attitude, this action, and the fact that the Inquisition also supported this act. It is a complex conflict, but the question is that it is a really hard conflict. The viceroy did really oppose to this and got to free the children. Well, it is a long story, but what was interesting is also that it gave rise to a debate about not only the interference of the Inquisition, but on the role of the father of Christians.
By the Christians.
Yeah, pai dos cristãos. Yeah.
So just to who is Mangoji Sanai? Is he like a really important person over here that the viceroy intervened on his behalf?
Yes, he was. He had a post in the hierarchy of the administrative structure in Goa. And worked for the Portuguese state also, keeping his faith. One of in the arguments that the viceroy used in their letters to the king, he states not only on Mangoji Sanai and the three great children, but also on what happened in Diu. He supported the idea that marriages between Hindus, according to Hindus' religion, should be respected if they were not exuberant, if they were discreet, and that the crown should have in India a more moderate position regarding the other religions, in order to have a more stable position
of the state,
yeah.
presumably, right? So you've given us a very complex, you presented a very complex case. I mean, this case is complex in that you have the viceroy on one hand, you have Mangoji Sanai on the other, you have the children, you have the inquisitor, so on. So again, like, so the question that I posed, like I said earlier, the part two of the question, how important do you think are such kind of cases for a larger generalization? Because one tends to have a particular idea of what the Inquisition was, but how does these kind of cases change our understanding, or do they keep, or do they remain? They keep our understanding the same? You know, let me put it this way: do they change our understanding of the Inquisition in a general sense, or do they like keep the do these cases keep our understanding the way it was?
I think that this is very important to try to search for dissenting voices, sometimes minority voices at the time, because if we can understand, because if we don't try to search this variety of voices, we think that things were just like that, and human behavior never is just like that, only once for all. And it gives us the idea, it is not to justify the action of the Inquisition and to say that, well, there were some good people that wanted to do differently. It's really to see how hard sometimes is to have a different opinion, but that they existed. And from minority, sometimes they become majority afterwards.
Right.
So it is important to understand the Inquisition itself, that we look out, not only inside the Inquisition and different sensibilities along the Inquisition, but outside the context, and how this can influence the course of the history.
Of the history, yeah. And also, if we think about the history, we're thinking about essentially a period of time, right? Especially in this case, we know it when it started and when it ended, so we get like a starting point and an ending point. And so, I think it's important that the whole the complexity of what happened, because it's just not one thing happened or the 10 things didn't happen,
Yeah.
many things happened. And so a challenge, I guess, as historians is to try to bring out that complexity of that experience, don't you think?
Yes, yes, because and you pointed out a very important issue. It is the time. The Inquisition in Goa in 1560 is one. The Inquisition in 17th century is different, and
Different.
in the 18 during different periods, because the people who is persecuted is not exactly the same
Mm,
from the point of view of culture and religion, and it is important not to have the idea, oh, the Inquisition, it's new Christians, Judaism, that's it.
mm,
In India, it was not after, it was not really like that.
mm.
So it is really important to have an overall idea, and the way to discover underneath some established ideas about the Inquisition or other things, to try to search for different opinions and different debates.
Right. And I think on that note, we could end, but before we end the interview, I always like to ask our guests what they are currently working on, like the research, if there is, if they would like to give us a glimpse of what's to come. So, are you working on something that could be either directly related to what we spoke about, or something
Now,
related?
now, precisely, I'm not directly working on the Inquisition, though, I, you've said, I'm in the Overseas Historical Archive, in the Archivo Histórico do Reino here, and I cannot stand to try to search for things related to the Inquisition in the records that appear. So I always keep this in mind. But my main interests now are related with the archival studies and history linked, colonial history,
Mhm.
even on what concerns the archives or sources for the study of Inquisition. I try to do that related to overseas. So my main attention now is to colonial history and to archives on colonial history.
That sounds fascinating, and especially for a topic like the Inquisition, where the archives are so less. It seems like we would like to have many books and articles on this to read, especially a student like me. So thank you so much. Thank you so much again for agreeing to do this interview. For your time. If I may, our story kind of begins from 1492, from the fall of Granada in Spain, and how that we followed that thread to Lisbon, then to the Ottoman Empire, and to Cochin. We spoke about the new Christians. We spoke about who these new Christians are and how difficult it is uh, to sort of define who a new Christian is. We spoke about the Jewish population. We spoke about how the slaves interacted with with the Inquisition in Cochin, and how difficult it is to understand this interaction too, because of the nature of how the record was created. You gave us a glimpse of the very interesting conflict in the 17th century between the viceroy, the inquisitor, and this figure of Mangoji Sanai too, which kind of complexifies or makes our understanding of the Inquisition that much richer than before. So for all that, thank you so much.
Thank,
Uh,
thank you for inviting me, really.
right, and to our viewers, thank you for watching, and thank you for your time.